Friday the 13th Part 2 was directed by Steve Miner, was released in 1981. It's a short sequel to the first iconic installment and showcases the first appearance of iconic killer Jason Voorhees. Most importantly, the second opus contains an absolutely standout scene. In this video, I'm taking a look at the deftness of a kill scene that outshines most kill scenes in any other Friday the 13th movie. At that point of the movie, after 1 hour or so, two couples stay in a cabin at the camp as the other counselors are having drinks downtown. Sandra and Jeffrey are about to get laid, while Mark and Vicky, who were having a platonic relationship, are planning on going further, as Vicky pretty soon invites Mark to have sexual intercourse. Let's take a look at Mark. Mark Jarvis is actually a decent character. He's a counselor at summer camp, but also an athlete. He had a motorcycle accident which left his legs paralyzed. Yet, he doesn't think he will be permanently bound to his wheelchair. As Vicky goes out to get ready for a hot time, a storm starts. Lightnings and thunderclaps begin to break out. Vicky changes clothes and she goes get a candle in the car when rain starts pouring down. The scene roughly lasts 1 minute. It's the 5th kill in the movie and to this day, probably the most praised in the whole franchise. So let's see how the effectiveness of that climactic scene was achieved. The first shot of the character of Mark takes place in the cabin. First we see the inside. The wall is full of hunting trophies and tools when Mark enters on the right side of the room. He's in his wheelchair. He stops for a moment. He's seen from the outside. The camera is on the porch as we see the frame of the window. But it doesn't feel like Jason's subjective point of view here, unlike most stalking POV we can see in the movie before, because here the camera is stable. It slightly tilts as Mark comes closer to the window and us. When Mark opens the door and goes out, the camera rotates alongside with him. So it remains stable, probably on a stand. But the next shot follows Mark as he moves leftwards and closer to the camera. He is now on the porch. The shot scale significantly changes. In the room Mark was at first seen entirely. We come from a medium shot to a zooming in to a close-up on Mark's face. So this first shot lasts about 33 seconds. And it goes from showing the whole character to a close-up on his face. Big restriction. From now on, the pacing is getting altered in a brilliant way. After this long uninterrupted shot, a few shots link to each other and their length radically changes, and that's when the audience starts to get uncomfortable. Let's take a look how. The scene can basically be cut like this. Shot 1. This is a front shot or close-up. We are before Mark. Mark gets closer to the camera and stops. Shot number 2. Mark is shot from behind. And there is a forward tracking shot. A subjective point of view with slight high angle. Supposedly the POV of Jason. We are in Jason's shoes here. Shot number 3. This is again a front shot. We are before Mark. Mark is alert and looking around. Shot number 4. Once again, we are behind Mark. And once again, we have a forward tracking shot that continues. We get closer to Mark's back. Shot number 5. We go once again before Mark, on the front. It dwells on his face. Mark is still looking around. Mainly his eyes are moving, and there is a clasp of thunder. As a result, the focus here is only on Mark's expressions. We can't see anything else around him. The suspense is then rising up along with the music. Shot number 6. The third and last forward tracking shot, getting really close to Mark's head now. In fact, even his shoulders are no longer visible in the shot, and we expect Mark to be hit on the back of his head. Something which happened before in the movie, when the deputy got stabbed in the head with a hammer claw. And this is where the director demonstrates great creativity, in my opinion, here, because the sequence of 6 shots consecutively focusing on the back and front of Mark was really misleading us, as the POV from behind was actually not Jason's POV. Jason is coming from the right side of Mark and the right side of the shot, which is brilliant, which is a rather uncanny spatial positioning. The machete strikes so fast that the kill is instantaneous, and the following shot shows Mark violently rolling backwards as the impact was absolutely tremendous. So we go from a close-up on Mark's face to a medium shot of him with a machete in his face, and this creates the effect of furtivity, an incredible strength of Jason's sneak attack. There is almost no movement from the killer. The cause and effect are totally condensed in one single shot. We only get to see Jason's hand. We see a bolt of lightning, and then Jason attacks as fast as the preceding flash, with a blitz. How brilliant is that? What makes this one-shot kill memorable is the perfect use of sound effects too, of course. Like first, the clasp of thunder, then the machete in the face sound, then Mark's disturbing wailing, and the screeching violence then. The music starts, interestingly, only when Mark gets out of the cabin. When he's inside, there is no music. Surprisingly, the shots following the brutal kill really take the horror further than it already is. A shot of the wheels rolling down backwards, followed by a weird long shot of countless stairs surrounded by trees, where Mark hurtles down each step, followed by another shot, zooming closer to Mark still going down. The baffling thing here is to see that combination of uninspected elements, that huge descent of steps, and the fact that Mark remains glued to his wheelchair, despite the force of the murder and contradictory maybe to universal gravitation laws. The rushing down the steps fades to a glaring, almost hurtling white screen with a combination of zooming in, and here the sound takes over. There is a nice use of the L cut here. Indeed, also the next shot changes in a surprising manner, which is an orgasm scene. The suspenseful music carries over for a few seconds, while the couple is just finishing their nasty dance. It's not a radical cut like the many that happen in the whole franchise. Even if the scene has been blatantly cut, the transition is still pretty effective. Indeed, Mark's death marks the release of the tension that has been greatly built up, and in the following shot is the release of sexual tension. So that's the relationship between the shots. Basically, Mark got killed at the same time when Sandra and Jeffrey were reaching orgasm. The sex scene offsets the death scene. As a matter of fact, we can argue that the key of a successful kill scene in a slasher movie would be to make the suspense last, but in a compelling fashion, regardless of the special effects. So we are deceived by the director because the camera work sets a kind of linear perspective, a straight reading of the scene. We are behind Mark, we are in front of Mark, and just a tracking shot forward is back. But we're also subtly deceived before Mark gets out of the cabin. Indeed, the tools shown on the wall, like old saws, an axe, a fork, a golf club, all those tools are in the background to make us think maybe they will be used at some point. Finally, another misleading trope is the window in the background. The first movie used windows a lot to create suspense. Hence the audience can get ready to see Jason throwing a corpse by the window, a recurrence in the franchise. There are several foreshadowings of the oblique lines of the machete in Mark's face. Well, some people might say I'm reading too much into it, but could it be accidental? They belong in a setting and could be seen as suggestive receding lines, again leading the eyes to the right, to the window, or to Mark. I would even say that these oblique lines are the shape of the slash. We can wonder why Mark is looking in the direction of the dining tables, since the entrance to the cabin is actually behind him. He's not even fully checking his right side. His head remains pretty still, only his eyes are moving sidewards. If we look at the cabin, we can see many times in the movie that Vicky would have come from the steps which are actually behind Mark. So why is Mark looking the other way? He's turning his back to where danger would be coming from. Of course, this question is not really a question. The crew probably knew it would be more original and shocking to have Mark hit from the side and falling down the stairs besides being horribly mangled. Another element that makes that scene even more shocking and gruesome is that Mark Jarvis is definitely a likable character. He is actually the first paraplegic character in the franchise, yet a resilient and persistent athlete. He might have suffered from a motorcycle accident. He's still training and believes he will walk again. Besides, he is portrayed as a strong, respectful, sensitive guy in his mid-20s, unlike most of the horny douchebags from the franchise. He even refuses to smoke a joint, and yet this doesn't spare him a terrible death. By the way, this would absolutely debunk the Puritan overtone that's commonly attributed to these slasher movies, since Jason kills regardless of people's values and virtues. All in all, it's because we feel empathy for Mark that his death scene also feels more intense and appalling. The poor guy was also about to get laid. What's also strange is the fact that Mark remains attached to his chair even after being killed. I would call this dark irony, as he was certain of not being in that chair forever.
Just your legs, huh? Is everything else okay?
Oh, I do all right, one way or another.
Now this line could be another ironical line, as Mark was watching one way and went the other way, back and downwards right after he gets killed. According to bloodydisgusting.com, 48 seconds of the film were cut to avoid X rating. Nevertheless, the scene undoubtedly subsists as the most memorable kill scene in the whole franchise. The ingredients of a spectacular kill scene would be those: a solid atmosphere, relying on great cinematography, music, sound effects, the economy of shots and sudden change of pacing in the shot length, spatial trickery, we don't know where the threat is, a psychological aspect, we have empathy for the victim, a gruesome graphic gory kill by Tom Savini, although we only get to see the result of the hit, an unexpected, unsettling continuation of the kill, and an uncanny descent showing the brutality of Jason. And finally, subtle subliminals. Kill scenes have been the stamp of slasher movies, and this scene is still one of the most illustrious from the Friday the 13th franchise, possibly from any slasher movie to this day. There's something eerie, emphasized by the mysterious score by Harry Manfredini. A disabled, likable young man is alone and stays motionless till death strikes him. And here there's a strong sense of helplessness that's conveyed. Jason just doesn't make any difference.
Come with me.